Hello there. Today I'm taking a look at a wine from a very influential southern French estate, Mas de Daumas Gassac. Mas de Daumas Gassac was created in the 1970s, the early 1970s, by Aimé Guibert, his wife Veronique, and their family. When they bought the Mas de Daumas, a large house that bordered the Gassac stream, and this is located about 40 kilometres to the west of Montpellier in the Languedoc. Now at this stage, they purchased the estate, they were looking for a house. The estate had been run down, it had belonged to an old man and he had lived there with his two sisters, and he'd farmed, but he hadn't used any machinery or any chemicals, he'd simply ploughed with a horse. The land had very much run wild, but somehow the Guiberts captured the vision to turn this into what is probably these days a world-class estate. So having purchased the estate in 1970, and with the advice of a friend, a soil scientist, Henri Engelbert, and also with the renowned enologist Émile Peynaud, they planted vines and eventually released their first vintage in 1978. The first wine was a red wine, predominantly a Cabernet Sauvignon, made quite in a Bordeaux sort of style. And today the red wine is still predominantly Cabernet Sauvignon. Later on, they launched a really quite idiosyncratic, quite characterful white wine that is a blend of southern French varieties, Marsanne-Roussin, with other varieties such as Menceng, Chenin, Chardonnay. So a real combination of different sort of quite rich styled French varieties, quite individualistic style. There is also a top cuvée made in the best year named after Émile Peynaud, and they make a sweet wine. The last wine that rounds off the range is the Rosé Frizant. This is a wine that's really been developed as a wine just for entertaining, for easy drinking. It's not particularly a wine to age, it's just designed to be an appealing fresh aperitif, I suppose. Now the wine is described as being method Charmat, in other words tank fermented. So it's not a bottle fermented wine like a champagne or something like that. And that helps keep costs down, but tends to make the fizz quite a gentle fizz. The wine's also labelled as extra brut, so we can expect this to be bone dry. Now looking at the label, I can't actually see an indication. I'm assuming this is a Vin de France, although previous vintages have been Vin de Pays and IGPs, but there's nothing to indicate that on the current label, which simply looks like that. The notes I have say the fruit is hand-picked, all the fruit on the estate is hand-picked. They refer to white clay soils. Now at the top of the estate here, the soils tend to be a white broken limestone, so I'm assuming that the clays are more valley soils, but at this sort of higher level in the cooler, up to sort of 200-300 meters, I think, above sea level. And this is one of the things about the estate, actually, that the Gassac Valley manages to funnel cool winds at night coming down from the hills above. And it actually gives the estate quite a cool climate nature, which would suit the production of this kind of style of wine. I've seen different notes as to what the blend is, and I think that's because the blend has changed over the years. In some cases, I don't think people have updated that information from vintage to vintage. In a few places, the notation shows this is about 90% Cabernet Sauvignon with 10% of Petit Menceng, a white variety, going in with it. In fact, I think what happened in 2022 was that the blend is about 70% of Cabernet Sauvignon, but that Cabernet Sauvignon coming from younger plots, and that's simply the free-run juice that comes off so some of the free-run juice is bled off the younger plots to concentrate the rest of the fruit during maceration, leaving an available amount of pink juice to make a rosé. So that's about 70% of the blend, and the remaining 30% comprises Mourvèdre, Pinot Noir, Petit Menceng, and a little bit of Muscat. First fermentation goes on in stainless steel, and then the wine goes into a sealed stainless steel tank for its second fermentation, which produces the fizz. As I say, it's labelled as extra brut, so I'm expecting this to be bone dry, so I'm assuming there's no dosage added at bottling. The wine will simply have been filtered into bottle to remove the yeasts at that stage. There's no dégorgement going on or anything like that. So let's have a look at the wine, shall we? First thing to say is that the fizz has really already faded. I mean, this is perhaps not the best glass for keeping the fizz in. I can still see a fine bead rising from the centre of the glass there, but they're very fine bubbles. There's not a lot of them. The colour is a sort of a pale orangey pink. One might almost sort of say a deep salmon pink. As I swirl it, this only has 11.5% alcohol. It's barely sticking to the glass at all. The swirling is releasing more of the bubbles. The bubbles here are looking larger. It's not really the fine bead that I was seeing persistently rising from the centre of the glass earlier. So let's see what we make of the aroma, shall we? The aromas are really quite rich, and there's almost a sort of a peach and apricot note to that. Perhaps that's that Muscat Petit Menseng sort of complementing the red fruits there. But there's a richness, there's a warmth, it's very inviting. So let's have a taste. On the palate, the fizz is really quite soft. It seems fairly fine. You're getting those sort of rich, quite juicy peach, nectarine, apricot sort of notes with a sort of a delicate red fruit. It's almost sort of coming through to a sort of slight strawberry note there. Hints of raspberry at the finish. There's nice acidity. There is good freshness. It's that lovely cooling influence that you get at this estate, giving a freshness that's lasting really well. And the freshness is really emphasising the freshness of the bubbles that were at the edge of my tongue. There's a lively, almost mineral sort of note there that's lasting really nicely. There's a mineral crispness that's leaving the finish dry and fresh. Yes, there's all that lovely, rich, juicy fruit, but it's finishing up dry and clean. There really is a very attractive elegance and length to the wine. It's simple. It has no complexing notes of yeast or oak or bottle development or anything like that. It really is simply coming across as a fresh, enjoyable, attractive rosé. And the lovely fruit is stopping it from seeming tart. There is a nice roundness to the finish. Obviously the 11.5% alcohol isn't standing out on the finish, and that's leaving an almost sort of sherbety perfume overlaying the stone fruit and the red soft fruit on the finish. Now, I looked at the Wine Searcher aggregated score for this wine, and across all the vintages I think it's 87. And while in some ways that may seem a little harsh, I think for what is a well-made wine, enjoyable and quite simple wine, I think that's a pretty fair score. I mean, maybe 88, 89 would have been more generous. I think it indicates this is a really enjoyable drink. It's certainly not one that I would try to aid. So yes, if you get the chance, well worth a go. Thank you very much for watching. I do hope you've enjoyed the video. If you have, do please press the like button. If you'd like to watch more of the videos, it'd be fantastic if you could subscribe to our channel and give us your support there. If you have any comments you'd like to leave, please pop those in the comments box below. I will leave a link in the notes to the web page on Wine Searcher, on the Wine Searcher website, for this vintage of this wine, so you can find its cost, its availability, and any other details we have about the wine on there. So thank you so much for joining us, and if you've managed to find some time and come and join us again, that'd be fantastic. Hopefully see you then. Bye for now.